Dope mans, prime gangbanger material. If you have these on, somebody's gonna bang on you, all right? You might get pressed. I'm just telling you right there. What's going on, everybody? So we're gonna have a little bit of a different conversation today. Something that you probably wouldn't expect from the likes of me, but we're gonna talk about the history of the Bloods and the Crips. We're gonna talk about gangs. We're gonna talk about gangbanging. We're gonna talk about what's really going on as far as gangs are concerned. You may look in the media often and realize that a lot of rappers are, getting killed for gang-related different things, such so on and so forth. We lost the late great Nipsey Hussle, who was an active gang member, but who was also a pillar in the community. I know some people probably look at that and say, how is that even possible? How can you be an active gang member and a pillar of the community? Let me break it down for you all right now. I grew up in a lot of different places. Originally, I came from Houston, Texas. Wasn't really a big gang city at the time, at least in my experience. It's changed now. But I also lived in Southeast San Diego, SD. So I lived in what was known as the Skyline Hills, which is, the Skyline Piru gang. So Pirus or Bloods were prevalent. That's what I grew up in. I also lived in East Denver, which was, Park Hill specifically, which was Bloods. Crenshaw Mafia Bloods lived there. And then I also I went to school in an area called Montbello or Green Valley, where it was prominently Crips. So I had a lot of exposure just growing up. I had a particular, I don't know what the right word is, but I was drawn to the Skyline Pirus. If you listen to my song, Just Like You, I talk about my uncles. You want to bang, I want to bang too, Skyline Piru. You could, for all intents and purposes, say I was a part of the Skyline Piru gang just because of sheer proximity, just because of where I lived. You had to represent your set, you had to represent your neighborhood. And so for me, it was not so much about, being this ultra tough guy. It was more so about, this is my community. Everyone in my community was a part of this. And so it's a lot easier to understand when you see it more like a neighborhood or a community or a fraternity than you see it as kind of this criminal enterprise, which is, I know, the way a lot of people see it. But let me break it down even further for you. That's not even how it started. How it really got started is this. You have to go all the way back to the civil rights era, right? You're going to the civil rights era, or even before that, right? Where you had in areas like Compton, which is predominantly white, and southern parts of Los Angeles that were predominantly white, Black people started migrating in. And once they started migrating in, before white flight happened, you had white gangs, kind of racist mobs of teenagers who would go about beating up and threatening and hurting some of these Black residents. So in order to protect themselves, these Black residents started to form alliances in order to protect themselves from these white gangs that started to mobilize and come in and cause them harm. Ultimately, what ends up happening, specifically in the California area, you have individuals like a Bunchy Carter who are, looking at the Black Panther movement, and who are forming their own kind of organizations. And these individuals, such as the Black Panthers and a lot of these Black liberation movements at the time, were instilling a sense of pride, instilling a sense of political prowess, and showing the Black community that there were ways in order to have your rights and your communities cared for that did not necessarily mean you had to resort to brute force, right? And so they were engaging the political process. They were not afraid of crooked law enforcement. And what happened is you have a younger generation looking up to these Black Panthers saying, man, I like these guys. I want to be just like them. They were relevant to a younger generation, whereas Martin Luther King, as powerful as he was suit and tie, a bit older, not as rough around the edges, and was not as appealing to a younger generation. So the younger generation is looking at the Black Panthers saying, yo, I like the way they roll. They seem tough. They got their guns. They're not afraid of the police. This is crazy. So they wanted to be like them. The problem is individuals like an Angela Davis or like an Eldridge Cleaver or a Bunchy Carter were either incarcerated or killed, right? Or, they're exiled. And so it leaves a void in the community. I mean, you're talking about, like, Angela Davis was a scholarly woman. She was, if I'm not mistaken, Stanford educated, or at least taught at Stanford. And so she had an understanding of how to engage the political powers that be. Well, now you got a generation of individuals who don't have the same quality of education, but they still have the same zeal, and they want to fight back, but they don't know all the things the Panthers know. So they're doing the best they can, and they form their own alliances, right? So these alliances get formed in the community to protect the community against police brutality, racism, and things along those lines. Well, what eventually ends up happening, you got Raymond Washington and some of the founders of the Cribs or the Crips, which is a whole nother conversation as to how it's Cribs and Crips. But basically, it was a community organization, you know what I'm saying? Community revolution in progress, right? Community Revolutionaries in Progress, CRIPS, right? Or CRIP, Crip. What's up, y'all? This is me, LECRAE. Y'all want to go behind the scenes with me? Y'all want to hear the real conversations, the pain, the hurt, the struggle, all the truth being told and the tea being spilled? Then y'all need to hit that link below. Check out my Patreon page. It's going down. So you got individuals who are really about protecting the community, but they're young and they're not as knowledgeable about how things go. And you know, youth and power, you become susceptible to all kinds of different types of things and corruption and so on and so forth. So they became a force to be reckoned with, specifically in Southern California. While they're a force to be reckoned with, you know, they become bullies to certain people. I'm not saying all of them, but certain ones were looked upon as bullies, like they were creating too much power. Well, in Compton, you got a group of individuals off of Piru Street, which is a major street on the west side of Compton, called the Piru Boys. And you got all these other little cliques that are saying, man, like the Crips are bigger than us, and especially if you go to prison, like they're a force to be reckoned with, right? So you don't want to go to war with the Crips, especially if you're in prison, because they're so big. So you had to form your own alliance. So all these little bitty cliques started formulating and coming together. The Piru Boys and you know, the Brims, different individuals, the Swans, all of them became collectively known as the Bloods, or they will say Blood. Piru says Blood. So back in the day, everybody used to say, hey, what's up, young blood? What's going on, young blood? And the Crips delineated, and they all started saying, cuz, what's up, cuz? What's going on, cuz? So now what you have is this giant organization called the Crips, and these smaller conglomerates, you know, who are saying, we're gonna get together and we're gonna form a blood alliance. So when they try to come against us, we have protection with one another. So they allied themselves. So now you got the Bloods, and now you have the Crips. And so what essentially it was about representing your community, representing your neighborhood. I have a soft place in my heart for the Skyline Pyrus. You know, there's an affirmation for these individuals. It's not so much that I'm down with criminal enterprise. You know what I mean? I tell a story in my book about when I was challenged at 13 to go, you know, handle some business. And I was like, man, you know what I mean? Like, this is where the rubber is meeting the road for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, do I really want to go down this path? Because I know where this leads. What I would say is that I'm not down for the criminal enterprise, but I'm down for those individuals in my community. I'm down for those particular people. And I'm not demonizing. I don't demonize gangs when I think about it as far as a community. Now, when you start talking about criminal enterprise and violence, sure, rivalries and killing each other, I'm not down for none of that. But when I think about individuals who are saying, man, I'm a part of the Skyline Hills community, and yes, we are, you know, many of them are known as Pyrus, and some of them are on some wrong stuff. They doing some crazy stuff. But by and large, there's a sense of family and connectedness in the community that people want to, you know, be bonded to, and they look out for each other, especially when you have other individuals from other neighborhoods who are coming by. Like, I'm gonna just tell you straight up, if I'm in a different part of town in Southeast San Diego, it doesn't matter if I'm a gangbanger or I'm not. If they say, hey, where you from? And I say, oh, I don't bang, man. Cool, where you from? Skyline Hills. Man, they might bang on me. If they're extra'd out, if they really on some crazy stuff, they might really try to take off on me. They might try to, you know what I'm saying, get the squabbles up or bow, bow, bow. I don't know. Be careful what hats you wear in the communities. It's not about colors like it used to be once upon a time. It's the hat. What hat are you wearing? You got a Houston hat. I'm from H-Town. I cannot go to Southern California with the Houston with the star. That represents Hoover. Hoover Street Criminals, Hoover or 52nd Deuce Hoover Crips. Just telling you, it's the hats. The P on your hat is Pyru. It's not the Padres or whatever. I'm just telling you, be careful what hat you wear. Just don't wear your favorite hat if you're going to LA. I'm just telling you like that. Just a plain hat. Wear a hat. Wear a LA hat, Dodgers hat. You're good. That's all you need. The reality of it is that, man, sometimes people have to choose to be affiliated with a gang for the sake of protection, because even if you say you're from there, they're gonna come after you. You say, I don't bang, but you're from there. So you might as well bang the neighborhood, because they're gonna come after you just because you're from there. And I'm not giving an excuse, I'm just painting a picture of a reality. And you know where this doesn't thrive is where areas are not marginalized, where areas are not disenfranchised. So I'm just saying to you, where there no marginalization, redlining, gerrymandering, there may not be gangs. And so what's become historic, and people wonder why it doesn't stop. Let me tell you why it doesn't stop. Is because since the 60s, somebody's been killing somebody else in somebody's family. So it's now a generational cycle of sin and death. And people can't let that go. If somebody killed your uncle, your cousin, your sister, your brother, it's gonna be hard to just let it go, especially when those are, your loved ones, and there's a mentality and an ideal picture that's been painted for you. So I say all this to say, I just wanted to educate y'all a little bit on gangs, gang culture, just throwing a little bit of history at you. Again, I do not want to say in any shape, form, or fashion that I affirm the criminal mindset, but at the same time, I understand the community and the camaraderie that exists there. And so rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. We appreciate you and your contributions to society. And man, much love. God bless y'all. What's going on, y'all? Thank you for checking out my channel. Make sure you hit the like, the subscribe, and ring the bell for the notifications. Also check me out on social media. Name is spelled LECRAE. God bless y'all.